Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Executive Director of Citizens Union, Dick Dady.
All right, let's get settled. How's everyone tonight? Who's going to be the last one to sit down? Is it going to be Anthony? No, it's not going to be Anthony Crowell. Maybe it'll be Dan Horowitz. It's going to be Art Chang. It's going to be the last one to sit down. It's going to cost you, Art. No, it's going to be Andrew Kimball, actually. Welcome, everyone. Welcome and thank you. Every year, I love looking out and seeing hundreds of friendly faces turned out to support Citizens Union. I'd love it even more if I could actually see some of you without these lights in my eyes, but I know that you're there. And I thank you for your attendance tonight, and most importantly, for the tremendous support that you have provided Citizens Union and turning this into a financial success. As I think we all know, going to many of these events just don't happen on their own. There's a lot of hard work behind them, and I particularly want to acknowledge the wonderful staff of Citizens Union. If they could just please stand and be acknowledged, and thank them for their wonderful work, not only tonight, but throughout the year. I know that we're here mostly tonight to honor 4 great New Yorkers, leaders who helped make this city a better place. But before we salute them, I ask you to pause for a moment to pay a silent tribute to another New Yorker dedicated to making this city a better place, Randolph Holder, a third-generation police officer who died in the line of duty on Tuesday night. Thank you. We're reminded by his death how tough a city New York can be. But it's still a great one. And it's made great through the efforts of our honorees and civic-minded New Yorkers like so many of you here in this room who care deeply about the city we live, work, and raise our families in. Citizens Union, as part of our effort tonight, needs your engagement and support to build the clout and the resources all year round to serve the public interest as a nonpartisan good government group. This year's honorees deserve our collective thanks for what they have done to help us in that cause. Let me tell you a little bit about them and why we're honoring them tonight. Adam Flatto has used his experience and success as a real estate investor and developer to strengthen philanthropy here in New York, and in doing so, build a much more livable city for all who call Gotham home. Mylan Denerstein, who have I had the pleasure of working with in Albany to reform our state's ethics, campaign finance, and redistricting laws. She's used her keen legal mind and admired public service to work toward a fairer and just society, treating everyone with dignity and respect. And then there's Haeda Mihaltses. We're going to go ahead. See, Adam's folks were being very polite and not clapping, so I think they deserve a round of applause now for Adam. So, Haeda, who is rumored to be one of the reasons behind the Mets' rise to the World Series, ever since she joined the franchise a year and a half ago as its chief cheerleader, is another exceptional public servant. Witnessing her ubiquitous presence at City Hall over the past 2 decades, I have to think a lot got done in the City Council and in the Mayor's office because of her smart input and positive impact. And for any of us who have sat in a meeting with Steve Younger, why not? We've experienced his extraordinary commitment to making government more effective and accountable, and his strong drive to create a stronger legal profession, a fairer judiciary, and a more efficient court system. These 4 public-spirited citizens, as I see them, are Gotham giants. So now you can applaud all 4 of them. They join a long list of previous Citizens Union Award recipients, including some guests who are here. You'll see a list of all of our past award recipients in the program journal, but I just want to take this moment to also acknowledge that we had a number of elected officials join us earlier tonight. Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, City Council Member Andrew Cohen, Senator Mike Gianaris, Assembly Member Guillermo Linares. Of course, we have with us Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, who we'll hear from momentarily, Assembly Member Rebecca Seawright, Assembly Members Keith Wright, Council Members Kalos and Eugene Matthew, as well as City Comptroller Scott Stringer. We thank them very much for their interest in being here tonight. Over the years, Citizens Union has been aided by the support of our honorees and New Yorkers like you. And we've pushed and pulled and fought tirelessly for our vision of what good government needs to be and do here in New York. And there is that phrase again, good government. Whether you and I realize it or not, good government touches us each and every day. You cannot get a positive outcome on a policy issue, a city project, or a program you care about unless there's basic fairness to the process itself and everyone plays by the same set of rules. For if the rules are rigged, and unfortunately sometimes they are, all New Yorkers lose. To make sure our political system is fair and our government is just, the members of Citizens Union, the staff, the board, our members, and volunteers stand up each and every day for what we believe in, which is clean campaigns, fair and open elections, honest and efficient government, informed and engaged voters. And just as we've spent the last 10 years successfully achieving voter approval of the decades-long and ending the decades-long practice of drawing legislative maps for partisan advantage, we will turn our future efforts and resources to a new issue, that of boosting voter turnout. Why? Because it's a big problem here in New York. Do you know that New York consistently ranks 49th out of 51 states and the District of Columbia in voter participation? 49th. That is abysmal, and it has been that way for 20 years. We are going to do something about that. Our new campaign will seek to boost voter turnout by removing some of the institutional barriers to voting and exploring ways to instill a stronger culture of voting here in New York and making democracy work in that way. Our 4 honorees here are devoted to making democracy work for everyone, is why we're honoring them. Their careers reflect that, their civic-minded pursuits reinforce it, and our city is all the better for the contributions that they have made. Well, with my contribution tonight now done, let me get out from underneath these lights and let the night get underway. But first, I ask you to turn your attention to the video monitors to hear from these 3 Citizens Union supporters on why we matter and why we're here tonight. Soon after that, you can eat, but to whet your appetite, watch this. Thank you.
Citizens Union was founded in 1897. There was a lot of corruption down at City Hall and Tammany Hall, and people were fed up. That history is instructive, and it's important to us because it shows that you can beat corruption. You can beat bad government.
Citizens Union is an effective organization because they have earned the credibility and the trust of the citizens of New York City. They get the word out and make sure that the citizens are informed and understand the process and its impact on their daily lives. We are not a body of one like-minded individual.
All New Yorkers, regardless of ability or background, should feel that they have a voice. And what we're seeing in New York City and New York State is that we have low voter turnout. Citizens Union is seeking to address this problem through reducing barriers to participate in the voting process. Where I see the challenge in the future is to engage those people and provide them with the resources and tools to express the things and the issues that they care about, both at the city and state level.
But one of the great things about Citizens Union is that somehow it's been able to be a magnet to attract extraordinary citizens in New York. There are ethics reform, lobbying reform, redistricting reform.
The only way good government will exist and work is if you have an active citizenry who are keeping their eye on what the politicos are doing.
But it's never ending.
This presents an opportunity to connect with more people and engage a broader public and to make democracy work for all New Yorkers.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chair of Citizens Union, Peter Sherwin.
Hi, everybody. Please go ahead, eat. Just, keep the mumbling to a minimum. Anyway, that was a great video. I love that video. We started doing videos a couple years ago, and I think they're really effective because everybody watches them. You get to see a little bit more about our organization. You get to hear a little bit. You already heard some from Dick. He was awesome, talking about our new focus on voter turnout. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about tonight before our featured speaker is state ethics reform. As chair of the board, I have a great privilege, and that is to preside over some amazing discussions among our great and so talented board members. And a lot of what we end up doing is talking about reform, and we think about it in three ways as part of our decision-making process. One is, what do we want to focus on? We can't do everything constantly, as much as Dick would like to. Two, we got to figure out exactly what it is that we're going to do to try to change the system. That's our policies. Those are what we put out in our white papers. But then third, and almost as important, if not more important than those other two, is we talk an awful lot about how are we going to implement this? How are we going to achieve this change? How are we going to get others, because we can't do it on our own, to pass the law, enact the statute, or change the way things are administered? Because that's really how we're going to end up with a level playing field for all New Yorkers. So one of those things is ethics reform. And we've been focused on this, as so many other New Yorkers have been more recently, and that's great. We want all the company that we can get. But we've looked at the last 15 years, and in the last 15 years alone, 31 legislators have resigned from Albany, 31, because of charges of criminal misconduct or ethical misconduct. That's outrageous. We deserve better than that. So what is CU trying to do in connection with that? So look, for a long time we had a package of reforms that were out there, and we were really lucky that with the championing assistance and leadership of Governor Cuomo, we got passage of a number of them in 2011. And part of that was having one oversight board for both the legislative branch as well as the executive. You say to me, Peter, that doesn't sound all that sexy, and it doesn't sound like it makes a big change, but it actually does. Because what happens is it took that oversight away from the people themselves, self-regulating, and put it in the hands of a transparent, independent joint commission. Now that commission can be made stronger, it needs to be more independent, it needs to be more transparent, but it was a huge step forward. And then, given the unfortunate charges that we found out about earlier this year, and now former Speaker of the Assembly, Sheldon Silver, in the wake of that, some incremental changes were able to be made as well. But CU isn't satisfied with that, nor is our featured speaker this evening. So what we did was we came up with a proposal, and it's a simple one, but I think it goes to the heart of what the problem is. And what we're saying is legislators in Albany need to be full-time servants of the public. In exchange, of course, they can have full-time salary. But what that means is they have to give up their Lulus, and they have to give up virtually all outside income, because you have to decouple the public trust that they have and their desire, we're all human, to benefit privately from that. We have to take that away. It hasn't gone as far as we wanted so far, but with your assistance, hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later. So now for our speaker this evening. You all know who he is, and you all are avidly waiting for that, as well as to hear more about the Mets, as am I. but just a couple notes. All right, let's clap for the Mets. So we're excited to have Attorney General Eric Schneiderman with us tonight because he's got a package of reforms on the state ethics level that are amazing as well. And he unveiled them. He did us the honor of unveiling them at a Citizens Union civic conversation earlier this year in March. And he's going to speak to us about that in a little bit more detail. But as you also probably know, the Attorney General is our highest ranking law enforcement officer of the state of New York. He is charged and has been doing a great job of doing it, of ensuring we're all treated equally, ensuring public safety, ensuring public trust, and equal treatment of all. He's also made it part of his office's priorities to root out public corruption, and he's already brought charges, I believe, against more than 70 different individuals, which is a shockingly high number, and we deserve many fewer. He's also a longtime reformer, having been very active in public finance for campaign. Please welcome with me the 65th Attorney General of the state of New York, Eric Schneiderman.
Wow. You have very high-class staff working the microphones here. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Peter, for that great introduction. And thanks to the board and staff of Citizens Union. I actually did intend to speak mostly about the Mets tonight, but I realized that public corruption seems to also be on the agenda. But I have to say, Citizens Union has done so much, and in fact, people who are not involved day to day in reform politics and some of these things that we dig in on in details and talk about Lulus and talk about per diems and things like that. Citizens Union has grown and flourished, and the turnout tonight reflects the hard work of a lot of people on the board and staff over years. So please, thank you for being here, and thanks to everyone who made this possible. And congratulations to my friends, your honorees tonight, Mylan Denerstein, a terrific colleague, a great lawyer, Alan Flatto, Stephen Younger, the person who showed up after I got elected Attorney General with the largest pile of resumes I've ever seen in my life. And Haeda, I do think the last time we had a meal together was the day Matt Harvey came back, and I wanted to know how he was doing. Right? So, anything happened since then? Look, this is our inspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, people say you'll never reform Albany. If the New York Mets can sweep the Cubs in such a devastating fashion, we can do anything. And I do want to say a special word about Dick Dady, because Dick and I have worked together for quite a few decades on different projects. And I want to just take note of another transformational piece of work that Dick did. Today is the 25th anniversary of the formation of the Empire State Pride Agenda. And with Dick's leadership in those early years, if you want to understand our capability for transformational change, to really change the way people do business, the way they think about things, look at the progress we've made on rights for the LGBT community in 25 years. So people ask, why are you a reformer? Why are you actually... My father was a member of a political club in Brooklyn back in the 1940s when he came back from World War II. And I thought this was very interesting that I had a card from his club, which was a something or other regular Democratic club. I showed it to the former head of the Brooklyn party, and he looked at it and said, he was a regular. What happened to you? Why are you a reformer? We're reformers because the purpose of the United States is perpetual reform. We didn't start out as a country that was perfect. In fact, if you really want to drill in, the notion that all men are created equal, in Thomas Jefferson's beautiful words, was far from true. Women weren't even in the sentence, by the way, but slavery was still here. Jews and other non-Christians labored under a whole host of disability laws. It was far from perfect, but the history of America has been the history of reform movements. It has been the history of movements like the abolition movement, the women's suffrage movement, the labor movement and the civil rights movement, the LGBT movement that we've seen rocket ahead with success in the last couple of decades. But it is also the history of political reform movements. And Citizens Union is at the core of political reform in New York and has been at the core of every important reform movement in the history of New York, going back to the end of the 19th century. A small group of prominent New Yorkers, fed up with the corruption at Tammany Hall, formed this new organization, originally as a political party, to fight back against corruption, and the battle was on. And within 4 years, they elected the first reform mayor of New York, Seth Low. And as the New York Times described them, Citizens Union was, quote, a good housekeeper who is unendingly mopping out dark corners, sweeping under sofas, mending and darning and patching, and as every good housekeeper knows, many small chores can add up to a big result. So for over 100 years, those who have, whose footsteps we're walking in, have fought for reforms that at the time were considered to be unachievable against corruption that makes today's look like a bunch of petty thieves and small-time artists. The level of corruption faced by Citizens Union in the earlier part of the 20th century was astonishing. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening today, but my favorite Citizens Union story is this remarkable story of what happened when Judge Samuel Seabury investigated Tammany Hall, and this is in the early 1930s, drove Mayor James Walker from office, came out with the most amazing revelations of corruption. But what was important was that Citizens Union and its allies took the public outrage at corruption and turned it into a reform movement. And the City Fusion Movement, as it was called, elected Fiorello LaGuardia as a reform mayor, and then rewrote all of New York City's laws and charter in 1936, transformed the city into a more democratic, more transparent, and more responsive government. So this has been done before. We're not trying to invent anything new. And if you're going to do reform, if you're going to try and undertake transformational change rather than tinkering around at the edges, I would commend to you the work of Citizens Union, because there really is no organization that has a track record like this. The 21st century reform movement, which we need to make our state a more democratic state, small d, a more transparent state, and a more just state, is underway. Now, Peter mentioned and several people have referred to the fact that there are quite a few members of the state legislature who are doing other things than they were doing when they were in the legislature. Well, actually, probably we're doing some of these things now at that time. But the fact of the matter is, we're not in a golden age of corruption. What we're in is a golden age of prosecutorial scrutiny. So I would respectfully submit that things haven't gotten more corrupt. It's just that prosecutors weren't really drilling in on the corruption. There was a sort of a sense that you could turn a blind eye to other public officials, because every prosecutor is either an elected official or appointed by an elected official. And I would suggest that the moment now is very much like the moment in the 1930s, searing revelations of corruption. And it is your job, it is our job, to see that the public doesn't just get disinterested and disgusted, but to see that you channel that outrage into a true reform movement. When I spoke at the Citizens Union meeting in March, I essentially laid out the paths forward. There are only two paths forward in the New York State government. Either there are going to be more investigations, more indictments, further erosion of public confidence, or we're going to see transformational reform that ensures that we are no longer a state, that makes it as hard as possible to vote and as hard as possible to register. In a litigation in North Carolina where they've cut back on early voting, they cited New York for the proposition that you don't really have to have any early voting or any provision to make it easy for people to vote. We are cited as the example of a state that gets away with making it very hard to register and very hard to vote. We can change this, but the way to change it is the Citizens Union way. We take the public outrage, we channel it into a reform movement, and we don't accept the idea that in 2016, with trials overhanging the state legislature of the leaders of both houses, which in fact is a unique event in the history of the state, this is the time to go big. This is the time to think big. This is the time to demand justice. This is the time to demand democracy and demand transparency. So, at the end of the day, and I believe what I said in March is true, and the legislature opted for incremental reforms this year, and people are still getting investigated, and people are still getting indicted. This stops, ladies and gentlemen, when we have reforms that actually deter and prevent corruption. In my office, our philosophy is very simple. Catching bad guys is good. Changing systems, changing processes, changing behavior so there are no more bad guys to catch is better. Let us direct the outrage at corruption into true reform. And I do have to say, it's been a pleasure. For decades I've been working on reform. We've had some great victories, and it's important to remember that. I referred earlier to the extraordinary success. When I first went into the New York State Senate, there was no civil rights law for the LGBT community in New York. You could fire someone for being gay. You could evict someone for being gay. It wasn't until 2002 that we passed the Sexual Orientation Non-Discrimination Act. We have succeeded beyond our wildest dreams there. In spite of overwhelming opposition, we succeeded in repealing the draconian Rockefeller drug laws, and we are well on our way to becoming more of a model of a just criminal justice system, and more steps taken this week. And I have to give my client a shout out for the governor for his work on making it easier for clemency and easier for these petitions to move forward. We are making moves in many areas in the criminal justice system. We had tremendous success. We have also seen reforms, and we've achieved reforms in government, but we are really at a moment, I believe, when the public outrage, and I travel around the state and talk to people all the time, and they are ready for change. They are demanding change. It is Citizens Union, it is you in this room, it is those of us who will stand with you who are going to make it possible for them to channel that outrage into real reform. As we begin the next legislative session, this has to be on our agenda. There is no reason for us to be 49th out of 50 states in voter participation. There is no reason that we essentially have no functional limits on how much money you can put into a campaign. The corrosive influence of money on government and politics can end here in New York in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to believe that change is possible before you start. If we hadn't believed that, if Dick and this ragtag handful of activists that formed the Empire State Pride agenda 25 years ago hadn't believed the change that most of us thought was inconceivable was possible, it never would have happened. Let's take this opportunity to take the steps for real reform, to give New Yorkers the good government they need. Because at the end of the day, the goal is not just to keep arresting more corrupt public officials. I'm proud of the fact that our office is more engaged in this than it ever has been, and it is true we've brought more than 70 cases since in the last really 3 to 4 years. But the goal is good government, and sometimes good government is denigrated, goo-goos, or sort of referred to as people with their heads in the clouds. Good government is something that we have to believe in. We all live together. We all live together here in New York, in the most amazing city in the world, in the most remarkable state in the country, as far as I'm concerned. We have to be able to deliver good government. We know how it's done. It's not like we're trying to discover a cure for cancer. We know how it's done. It's done in other places. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our challenge. You've got the opportunity. Please seize it. Join with me, join with Citizens Union. Let's have the 21st century reform movement that New Yorkers deserve. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the video screen as we present our first Citizens Union Award for the evening.
I met Adam and his wife Olivia when I was with Karen at a real estate conference in Arizona 20 years ago.
It's my great honor and pleasure to be Adam's partner as co-chairs of the Park Avenue Armory. We started working together on the International Center of Photography. Adam was actually responsible for building their whole installation.
I've seen him in many different capacities. I've backed him in various projects around the city. You can have a lot of fun with Adam.
You know, you can sum up all of that in one word: character.
I've never seen him lose his cool. He's an incredibly measured, stable partner, friend.
He is a leader here at the Park Avenue Armory.
Adam really represents grace under pressure. I think that is probably the best evidence of Adam's wonderful qualities.
Please welcome the Executive Director of the Robin Hood Foundation, David Saltzman.
I am thrilled to brag about my good friend Adam Flatto, but first, let me say thank you to you, Dick, and to everybody at Citizens Union for your extraordinary leadership and for making our great city even better. You couldn't have picked a better recipient for your Business Leadership Award than Adam. I've had the extraordinary privilege of being friends with Adam since we were little kids, since I had hair on my head, and he's always been an extraordinary friend, an honorable leader. We lost touch, but then we came together through our mutual mentor, Marshall Rose, Adam's partner. And today, 2,600 public school students were lucky enough to attend high schools that Adam and Marshall and Georgetown built. And last year, 100% of the students in those schools graduated on time and are now attending college. It's fitting that Adam receives this award here because we were a block away at a place only slightly more stylish, the Beyond Coffee Shop, having breakfast when Adam said to me, "So what are we going to do next? This is our time to help lead this city to even better places." And he said, "Why don't we do something to help homeless people get homes?" And Adam has single-handedly brought together the real estate community in New York City to work with Robin Hood, and together we are cooking up ways to create massive amounts of housing for poor and homeless families. So Citizens Union, you picked wisely when you picked my great friend, Adam Flatto, to receive your Leadership Award.
All right. That was truly embarrassing, so thank you. Thank you, David. And, you know, if you want to see the true meaning of a civic-minded New Yorker, you really need look no further than David. His impact at Robin Hood is legendary. What's not known are his travel skills. We spent 3 years, felt like 3 years, but it was 3 weeks together with our two 18-year-old boys. That's why it felt like 3 years. This summer visiting Japan and China, and you really don't get to know somebody until you've figured out how to navigate the Beijing subway system during rush hour with him. So David is really my hero. He's an incredibly dedicated civic person who has voluntarily given up personal gain for the sake of his community. This notion of civic duty is obviously very much at the heart of the mission of the Citizens Union. At its essence, it's the effort of New Yorkers working tirelessly to make their city and state in better shape than they found it. That same notion of civic duty has also been the principle which I've tried to follow with my colleagues at Georgetown for over 30 years. As successful business people, we have had the opportunity to give back, and this is something which I'm really proud to say is seized upon throughout our entire company. With David, we, as you heard, had the privilege of building 3 charter high schools in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and in the South Bronx, where over 2,600 students are taught. This 7-year assignment, thank you, that's great. This 7-year assignment, all undertaken completely pro bono by our team at Georgetown, is a perfect example of the kind of work that we have come to value as much as any commercial project we have ever done. With my dear friend Ellie Rose, who's here, we built a state-of-the-art school and museum for the International Center of Photography, transforming the entire institution in the process. Together with Ellie and Rebecca Robertson, who, in a completely unbiased opinion, is the most remarkable and dedicated executive of any New York cultural institution, we are now creating a completely revolutionary contemporary arts center at the Park Avenue Armory, bringing some hip to the Upper East Side. I've also been incredibly fortunate to serve as chair of the Enterprise Foundation in New York, providing affordable housing throughout New York City. And again, with David, as you heard, and his amazing colleagues at Robin Hood, we recently started a new housing advisory board to bring the talent and resources of Robin Hood to attack the problems of homelessness and lack of housing in our city. I'm also, and even more so, extremely proud to say that my colleagues at Georgetown are equally dedicated to this mission. Among them are board members of universities, charter schools, park trusts, performing arts centers, and many more. This principle of fulfilling one's obligation to community, which is so present in my life and the lives of all of my colleagues at Georgetown, however, was not mine. We have all simply followed the incredible model and passionate commitment of one of the greatest and most civic-minded men I've ever known, the founder of our firm, Marshall Rose. I met Marshall when I was a senior in college, and but for 2 years at business school, have spent my entire career learning at his side. While neither patronizing nor preaching, but simply leading by example, Marshall has given me and every person at our firm the greatest gift by demonstrating the feelings of joy and satisfaction which come from fulfilling one's civic duty. The many years of dedicated service which he gave as chairman of the New York Public Library, creator of New Bryant Park, head of Lincoln Center redevelopment, and so many more incredible achievements serve to show us all the true meaning of philanthropy, where giving one's time is as valuable as giving resources. Thank you. Now, I complained a few years ago to my wife, Olivia, that I had thought about it, and it seemed to me that there was something wrong. I was focused on my family and work, but I had no significant interests beyond this, and no hobbies. I didn't play golf. I didn't go fishing. I don't hunt. I didn't collect cards. I don't even collect baseball cards. Never tried to fly a plane, and I'm a lousy tennis player. Kind of boring. But after agreeing wholeheartedly that I, in fact, was a complete stick in the mud, Olivia did point out that I really had one very important hobby, and that was the wonderful time I spent on all the civic-oriented work. And let me tell you, this has been a great way to avoid being boring. And while other activities are certainly great fun, for me, the rewards from this extracurricular activity are truly the best. So I want to thank you for the honor and the privilege to accept this award on behalf of all the incredibly talented people at the various not-for-profits with whom I've worked. I want to thank especially several board members of the Citizens Union, Jason Stewart and Randy Mastro, my dear friends, who are incredibly dedicated as well to making the city great. Thank you to my incredibly dedicated colleagues and friends at Georgetown who work as hard and as well as any damn group I have ever seen. And finally, I want to thank the smartest, strongest, and most beautiful person I know, my wife, Olivia. I am truly the luckiest man alive to have someone with the understanding to put up with me and all of my many shortcomings, and through it all is there to support me and be my foundation. You are my family. Je t'aime. Thank you.
Please welcome the Vice Chair of the Citizens Union Foundation, Judy Rappaport-Blitzer.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. With your support, Citizens Union has raised $914,000 to help make democracy work for all New Yorkers. That kind of wonderful result and an event of this magnitude require many people contributing in a multitude of ways. I'd like to particularly thank tonight's Excelsior sponsors, the Georgetown Company, Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, and Mariana and George Kaufman. Thank you. Citizens Union's Stellar Dinner Committee stayed on the job throughout the year to make tonight possible, and I'd like to pay special tribute to Christina Davis and Tony Smith on our committee, plus other board members who helped tremendously with this event. Bob Abrams, Esther Fuchs, Randy Mastro, Tom Osterman, Peter Sherwin, and Jason Stewart. Incredible job all, we thank you. There are contribution envelopes on the tables for those of you who would like to make a contribution if you're here as a guest or simply add to your support. We would love to be able to reach $950,000 tonight. The extra funds would help cover 2 months of our expenses for our voter turnout campaign. As you leave tonight, please be sure to pick up your New York Mets t-shirt. These have been very generously provided by our home team on its way to the World Series. Any contribution envelopes can be given to our staff at the same time. We look forward to saluting our other 3 honorees in a little bit, but now we're pleased to take a break so we can all enjoy dinner. Thank you and enjoy the evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Dick Dady, Executive Director of Citizens Union.
So welcome back. Tom, I'm gonna fine you, Tom Osterman, if you're standing up. You know, the Mets has to be among the most rowdy tables. We love it. I wonder why. So, I hope you all enjoyed your meal. We certainly have enjoyed having you here. We've got 3 more awards left to present. I promise they will be quick. Right, Steve Cohen? But I just want to remind people that we're going to continue to serve dessert because we do want to be mindful of people's times. But as we serve dessert, just try and keep the chatter low, if non-existent, because we have 3 great New Yorkers we want to continue to honor. But there are these little envelopes, and I call them church envelopes, with the Citizens Union logo on them. You heard Judy Blitzer, our vice chair, earlier make mention of the fact that we'd love to raise some additional money tonight from those of you who have not yet contributed to Citizens Union and are inspired by the work that we are presenting here tonight in support of our voter participation and our campaign to vote to boost voter turnout. So if you wouldn't mind just going to the table and making sure that you can pull these out. There's pens, there's envelopes, and there will be someone at the end of at the back of the ballroom as people leave to collect the envelopes if you'd like to send it in, or you can mail it in as well. So enjoy the next 30 minutes. Glad to have you here, and I think we're set, right? So we're going to cue the video here for our next honoree.
I've known Mylan coming up on 20 years now, when she started as a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. Mylan's a very caring person. Protecting the public was a key feature of what she focused on. It's important for her to be doing something that improves the lives of others. As a federal prosecutor, she worked on violent crimes to securities fraud. She had a very broad mandate in areas that covered social justice, the environment, and the like. And she made sure that nonprofits and charities are operating as they should be. She's on the board of the Vera Institute. She's working on social justice issues there, something I know that she cares very deeply about. When she's in a meeting, there are junior people. She knows the junior people's names. She invites them to participate. She's just somebody who brightens the room when she comes in every way. Mylan is a lot of fun. She has a good sense of humor, but she's also one of the most serene people. She always makes you feel more comfortable. She always makes you feel better about yourself. She asks about your family. She's just a very personable, easygoing person. Sometimes you have to sort of snap and say, my goodness, she's held all these important jobs, and she's one of the most just lovely, down-to-earth, easygoing people I know. She doesn't see the world full of barriers. She sees the world full of opportunities, and it shows by what she does.
Please welcome Executive Vice President and General Counsel of McAndrews & Forbes, Stephen Cohen.
Good evening, especially to table 22. It's my table. And it's cheap, but I will work cheap, which is how I distinguish myself from Mylan Denerstein. I want to try to resist the urge to deconstruct the entire evening. So instead, I'll just deconstruct a small portion of it. Dick Dady, my good friend, a nervous and on-time punctual person, asked me if I would be willing to come and introduce Mylan, who I have known for almost my entire career. And I said, I'd love to, Dick, and I'm prepared to say very thoughtful things about Mylan. He said, you don't really have to say anything about her. I said, well, what do you mean? I'm going to come. I have prepared. I know a lot about Mylan. We're in the U.S. Attorney's Office together. I know she's a graduate of Columbia Law School, was a deputy chief of the criminal division in the U.S. Attorney's Office. She then went on to the fire department to an illustrious career as the head of legal affairs. And then I was involved in helping to bring her to the New York State Attorney General's office, where she became a favorite of the then Attorney General, Andrew Cuomo. And I'm willing to tell everybody that. And he said, it's not necessary. Because you see, we have Karen Seymour. And Karen Seymour is attractive, thoughtful, and articulate. And she is going to do a video. And we will play the video. And I said, well, send me the video, Dick. And he sent me the video. And I saw the video you just saw, and I said, wow, Karen Seymour is attractive and articulate and thoughtful and, really looks good on camera. And I said, Dick, why don't I do the video? And he said, we don't need you to do a video. I said, but I really know Mylan. Mylan and I worked together on the passage of marriage equality. She was really the lead. I later took all the credit. And happens to be true. And he said, no, really, we're good with the video. With Karen, all you got to do is go up and you'll be there, and in case we need you, you're there. And I said, Dick, I don't understand the in case you need me. I was there with Mylan. We were in the governor's office together that difficult first year, that fabulous legislative session where she ran all the bills and I again took all the credit, and she was serene and a source of calm, and people would seek her out for advice, and they needed somebody to threaten somebody, they would roll me out. And I said, I can tell those stories. And he said, no, we really only need you there for one reason. I said, well, what do you need me there for? He said, well, there's a high probability the governor told us that he cannot attend. But he'll send a letter. And we need you to read the letter. October 22nd, 2015. Dear friends. That's about 2/3 of you in the room, by the way. This is all confidential, right? Because we've got alumni of the U.S. Attorney's Office in here mingling with alumni of the Governor's Office, and who knows what's going to happen. It's a pleasure to send greetings to everyone gathered for Citizens Union of the City of New York's 2015 awards dinner. I want to extend special congratulations to Mylan Denerstein, one of the best counsels this state has ever known. I was there. She was the best counsel the state's ever known. I can't think of a more fitting recipient for Citizen Union's Public Service Award. I was extremely fortunate to have Mylan by my side at both the Attorney General and Governor's Office, where her guidance and acumen were instrumental to achieving several landmark settlements and passing our historic marriage equality legislation, whose impact was felt around the nation and world. During her 8 years of service with me, Mylan worked tirelessly to bring social and economic justice to New Yorkers, and her work helped blaze a path that ensures our continued progress. With warmest regards and best wishes to all for a wonderful event and much future success, sincerely, Andrew M. Cuomo. I'm going over the 2 minutes Dick gave me, but I don't care. By the way, he told Mylan that she got to pick whichever one of the four she wanted. And now she's told one is gone, so she's very upset. Younger is left with whatever everybody else doesn't choose. This is a passage, an actual passage from a book that tells an important moment in New York history. The book is called All Things Possible by Andrew Cuomo. I would encourage you all to buy the book. And I will do the actual reading from the book. Mylan Denerstein was also recommended by many, but getting her to switch teams was tough. Deputy Fire Commissioner in charge of NYFD Legal Affairs, Mylan was a former federal prosecutor who was doing innovative work and wasn't job hunting. I'd never met her, but she and Steve Cohen were friends from the U.S. Attorney's Office, so I asked Steve to ask her to meet us for breakfast. The two Steves, our honoree Younger, and myself, Cohen, and I met her at a restaurant near her home. The deal was, Mylan said, I don't really want to meet the guy. I said, he's the guy's going to be Attorney General of the state of New York. You got to meet him. She said, well, fine, we'll do it as long as it's near my home. It's absolutely true. So we met her at a restaurant near her home. Assuming she'd recognize me, I jokingly said, hi, I'm Steve Younger. I thought my remark was an amusing icebreaker. But as it turned out, Mylan didn't know me from Mr. Rogers. After shaking my hand, she turned to Steve Younger and said, pleasure to meet you, Mr. Attorney General. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, my colleague, my sister, Mylan Denerstein. There's no photo, but we're going to pretend anyway. By the way, the music is from Dick's personal collection. Hasn't changed in 50 years. Right.
Well, where do you start after Steve Cohen? Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you to Citizens Union for this tremendous honor. It's a real pleasure to be standing here to be honored for my government service at the city, state, and federal level. Citizens Union is taking the time to celebrate government, recognizing that government has a purpose and that people in government do good work. It is also truly an honor to be here with such a distinguished group, my fellow honorees. So congratulations to Adam, Haeda, and Steve. And thank you to my colleagues at Gibson Dunn for their committed support of Citizens Union and welcoming me into the Gibson Dunn family. It is almost my 1-year anniversary at the firm, and Gibson stands for exemplary advocacy, but it also stands for commitment to public service. Many of my partners have served in a wide variety of government positions, and I am proud to work somewhere that shares my belief in the importance and value of government service. And thank you, of course, to my many friends who are here tonight, hopefully more than Haeda. I'm wearing blue for the Mets. And who can argue with Citizens Union mission to make government more accountable to the people it serves? And of course, I was tremendously lucky to work under somebody like Karen Seymour, who was one of my first supervisors, and I'm lucky to be able to continue to work with her. And of course, I want to thank my wonderful family. My husband, Phil, is here tonight, and my sister, Lisa. If you see someone who looks a lot like me, but does not say hello to you, it is likely my sister. So don't take offense. My family has always been incredibly supportive of me on all of my journeys, and government service is definitely a journey. I actually want to say something slightly serious, because this is a time when there's so much cynicism about government at all levels and about what government workers do or don't do. And that's why this honor actually means more to me right now and is so special. I mean, we all read the headlines and we all watch the news, and you can feel like nobody in government is doing anything right or is working for the people at all. The truth of the matter is that the people I have worked with have worked tremendously hard, for very long hours, for very little pay, to make things better for New Yorkers. They certainly do not do it for the praise. They do it because they believe they have an opportunity, a gift to try to actually make things better for all New Yorkers and for our future. So tonight, I really share this award with all the people who have worked so hard with me to get things done. And in particular, I want to share this with one special person. Many of you have read about my fallen colleague, Carrie Gabay, who at 43 was an innocent victim of gun violence on our very city streets. Carrie worked with me for 4 years in the Governor's Counsel's office as an assistant counsel. And at great personal sacrifice, he worked long hours, he was not paid very much, and he could have made a lot more in the private sector. And he traveled back and forth from New York City to Albany regularly so he could be home with his wife on the weekends. In 2013, we worked on the SAFE Act together, common sense gun regulation to restrict access to guns by people who really shouldn't have them, and to restrict access to military-type weapons that serve no purpose other than to kill people. This week, the Second Circuit upheld the SAFE Act, showing that not only is sensible gun regulation possible, it is entirely legal. While Carrie's death was senseless, I believe that New York's legislation has helped to save lives, even though it didn't save Carrie's. It's time for our nation to truly follow New York's lead. Carrie's selflessness and concern for others exemplified what is best about government service. I truly believe if we remember how much government can do and how good it can do it, and think about people like Carrie, and put aside some of our negativity about government, government will do great things and will make things better for all of us, which is indeed the point. Thank you again. I am truly humbled and honored to share this with all of you. I do not view this as my award, because public service is about working with other people and teams, and it takes a team to get things done. So thank you.
Please turn your attention to the video screen as we present our next award.
I was lucky enough to hire Haeda Mihaltses back in 1986 when I took over as the leader of the city council. She exceeded my expectations tremendously. She not only was brilliant and a master of economics and finance, but she was kind and caring and considerate of other people.
Haeda Mihaltses is one of these people that loves life, loves New York, and is always looking to make things better. She was our director of intergovernment affairs. Haeda could smooth the way, get people to work together, and all the citizens really benefited from her work.
She's a unique person. Not only the first woman budget director of the City Council of the City of New York, but also the first Greek American. She's very active in civics as well as in governmental work.
One of the things that Haeda got done, which nobody thought anybody could do, was the Smoke-Free Clean Air Act back in 2002. Today, New Yorkers are living 3 years longer than they did back then. When Hurricane Sandy hit, I put Haeda in charge of rehabilitating Staten Island, and Haeda came through.
She was one of my most trusted employees. I loved her, and everybody else loved her. And most important of all, she was able to talk to 50 warring council members, all of whom were fighting to get a piece of the budget, and calm them down and settle it so that we were able to do miraculous things.
I don't know if she ever wakes up in a bad mood, but she certainly never came to work with one. Haeda's sense of humor gets people to come together. By the time Haeda gets done, they're walking arm in arm right down the aisle. Haeda, Congratulations on winning this award, or as we say in Greek, mazel tov.
Please welcome Chief Executive Officer of Bloomberg Philanthropies, Patty Harris.
Hi, everyone. I don't think I can get up here without saying 3 important words. Let's go, Mets! You have to root for a team that pulled off one of the greatest deals in history. And I'm not talking about getting Yoenis Cespedes before the trade deal, but that was a good move. Almost as good a move as the one they pulled off last season, getting Haeda Mihaltses on the team. And they did it without giving up any draft picks or any minor league talent. After 12 years working at City Hall, just a few feet away from tonight's honoree, I can tell you a lot about her. But in the interest of time, I think I'll sum it up in one word. Haeda is a mensch. That's not usually something you'd say about a woman, let alone a Greek woman. But it couldn't be more true. Haeda is smart, strategic, committed, respected, and she's incredibly cool under pressure. And as you just heard from Mayor Bloomberg, I don't think I've ever seen her lose her cool. And that's saying a lot, given what her job was dealing with elected officials. She was incredibly dedicated to her work, and she always found a creative approach to pursuing important legislation and working with legislators. And she even convinced the city council to allow Mike Bloomberg to have a 3rd term. Thank you, Haeda. Thank you so much. Really appreciated that one. More importantly, though, and I know Mayor Bloomberg would agree with this, Haeda is one of the best people you'd ever meet. She's warm and friendly and incredibly generous. And with her husband, George, she runs Santa's Hay. We gotta mention George. Always good to mention the husband, right, Mark? Just checking on them. Okay. But together, they run Santa's Angels every holiday season, delivering hundreds of gifts to children who otherwise would not receive a thing. For 2 years, the amazing Mets have been lucky to have the amazing Mihaltses. And look what happened. They made it to the World Series. But New York City was blessed to have her for more than 20 years, and we're so much the better for it. So thank you to the Citizens Union, Peter Sherman, Dick Dady, for recognizing one of New York City's really wonderful treasures. Thank you to my former colleague, Haeda, and as Ed Koch, thanks, Bill, for that. As Mike Bloomberg always said, subconscious, I work for 2 mayors. Don't screw it up. You never have screwed it up. Congratulations.
Everyone. First, I'd like to apologize for my loud family and friends, but I love them all, and they have 15 years of built-up frustration in them, but it's all good. Anyway. So, thank you, Patty, for those kind words, and good evening. Let me begin by congratulating all of tonight's honorees, Mylan, Adam, and Stephen. It's an honor to be included in this distinguished group. Sorry, I haven't had sleep in 3 days, but I I've had the privilege of working for some beloved public figures in this town. Speaker Peter Vallone, Mayor Mike Bloomberg, and Mr. Met. Both the speaker and the mayor could only dream of Mr. Met's current approval rating. Seriously, I've had the pleasure and good fortune throughout my professional life to work with great winning teams. A number of you are here tonight. The New York City Council Finance Division under the leadership of Speaker Peter Vallone, Mayor Mike, Patty Harris, and all my colleagues in the Bloomberg administration. And now Jeff and Fred Wilpon, Saul Katz, the New York Mets, and the Sterling Organization. So we all know how amazing those Mets are, so I won't say it, I'll say it once. Let's go Mets, on to a World Series win. The late, great Ed Koch once said, "Public service is the noblest of professions if done honorably, if it's done right. Once you've done it, there's nothing comparable," and he was right. The city has been blessed with, and I've had the good fortune of working alongside principled people who are committed to causes greater than themselves. They've pursued policies and conducted their politics in a way that dignifies and respects public service. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. I watched Mike Bloomberg and Peter Vallone stand up for their positions and principles throughout tremendous adversity and against popular sentiment. Speaker Vallone passing the first gay rights bill in New York City. Mayor Bloomberg, right after 9/11, making the difficult decision to pursue a smoking bill and a large property tax increase. These decisions were unpopular, but both men knew it was the right thing to do, and thank God they did it. For 100+ years, Citizen Union has been doing public service well, and I am humbled that an organization of this renown would honor me for mine. From nonpartisan elections to voter education efforts, from advocating for important city charter changes to encouraging redistricting reform, Citizens Union has always pursued an overarching goal: fairness. One group shouldn't benefit over another. One person shouldn't have more influence than another. Likewise, fairness has always been a guiding principle in my life. Be it a borough, a neighborhood, a politician, or a person, all should be treated fairly. Public service is about fairness, acknowledging all the positions and people who make up the collective public interest and pursuing an agenda that balances all these voices. After all, fairness and a lot of hard work allowed a Queens girl raised in the Bronx, who was born to immigrant parents from Greece, to stand before you today. I know that throughout my career, whether at the City Council or the Mayor's office, or just as an engaged citizen, the Citizens Union stamp of approval always meant something and still does. Mayors and legislatures may come and go, but the work of making government more effective and efficient, and the work of making our democracy more open and inclusive, will always continue. The many talented and dedicated people that I have worked with through the years and continue to work with do this each and every day. I'd like to conclude by thanking my husband, George Mihaltses. For all his love and support throughout the years, and for going on this wonderful ride with me, George, thank you. My parents, who couldn't be here tonight, but I know my brothers and sisters are videotaping, so they'll watch it. My family, my friends, and all the people I have worked with in government and at the New York Mets, who have been truly an inspiration to me. And lastly, I'd like to thank Peter and Dick and the gang at the Citizens Union for all you do for our great city and state, and for honoring me with this award. Thank you.
Please turn your attention to the video screen as we present our final award.
Steve Younger has contributed more energy and more of his personal time using his legal skills to the betterment of the public than anybody I know.
He's a New Yorker through and through in terms of his comfort with people from different backgrounds and different walks of life. To me, he's kind of like the poster child when they bestow this prestigious award.
Steve's background in a diverse community helped him to be able to speak openly, plainly to people from all stripes. Steve has been interested in court reform for years. He was deeply impressed in terms of his development by his work at the Court of Appeals as a clerk.
The firmest pillar of good government is the true administration of justice. I believe that.
His involvement at all levels has affected the kind of judicial system and court system that we now have.
But he's taken on a number of issues that are really important policy issues.
Working with prosecutors and defenders across the state to try to see if we could agree upon how to change critical functions of law enforcement.
So I think he's still one of the voices out there saying we haven't gone far enough. We have to stay focused on making sure that the way we manage our courts, the way we people our courts, the standards we hold our judges to, keeps up with the times. He is a quite capable, thoughtful, mature, and likable individual.
And he's honest. And I think honesty is one of the most important qualities a lawyer can carry with him or herself.
He has values that you can identify with. He's straightforward.
I think Steve is a public servant. He has done an amazing amount of work bettering the lives of citizens all over the state.
And that's really what the award is all about.
Hang in there, folks. We're at the end. Let's give Steve his due. I'm Bob Abrams, and I'm honored to be with you for two reasons. First, as the president of the Citizens Union Foundation, to say just a word. You've heard tonight how this 116-year organization has been a watchdog, and it's a watchdog with a big bark and a watchdog with a big bite. Throughout this past century, there have been episodes of corruption, and it's Citizens Union who zeroes in the searchlight to expose what's wrong and takes care of corrective action, takes care of the need to try to fashion remedies to solve some of those problems. And so I'm honored to be here tonight to say those kinds of things. And secondly, to have the privilege of introducing our final nominee, our final honoree, Steve Younger. Steve is the product of two extraordinary individuals. His father was a minister, his mother was a minister. She's here tonight, 91 years old. They inculcated in him these tremendous values of goodness. The essence of the man is his decency, his commitment to social justice, his commitment to fairness, his acceptance of all individuals, no matter what their station in life and who they are. Steve is a guy of quality. Harvard College. Editor-in-chief of the Albany Law Review. Magna cum laude graduate of Albany Law School. He clerked for Judge Hugh Jones after graduating from law school at the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals. For 30 years, he's been at Patterson-Belknap, being a preeminent commercial litigator known throughout the United States, giving hundreds of webinars and seminars, writing dozens of articles with respect to the art and practice of his profession. He's a guy who has gotten incredible numbers of awards over these years. He was the president of the New York State Bar Association. He was a delegate at the ABA conventions and the delegate assemblies. He was on task forces and committees. He's gotten honors galore. I saw him up front and firsthand when Governor Cuomo gave me the opportunity to be the executive chair of his transition when he got elected to be Attorney General. And as it turned out, Steve Younger was the director of that transition. So I saw him up front, day in and day out, working hard, pro bono, non-salaried, to try to have the Attorney General attract the best to come to the office of the State Attorney General. And indeed, you've seen one of the people here today who he helped recruit, Mylan Denerstein, who is one of the honorees. And I remember being at the press conference announcing her appointment. And Steve, during that entire period of time, worked hard, day in and day out, with total integrity, with independence, trying to reach out and ferret out the best that the legal profession could offer the people of the state of New York in the Attorney General's office. I saw the wide range of his contacts. I saw the respect with which he has been held by presidents of bar associations, by leadership people in the community throughout the state of New York. And so it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce to you the man who's going to get the Civic Achievement Award this year, a class act, a guy who really deserves this award and recognition, Steve Younger.
Well, thank you, Bob, for those incredibly and overly generous remarks. Tonight, it's you we should be applauding for all the many years of service to our public. Bob Abrams. When these kinds of embarrassing introductions are made, I always wish that my mom was here, and she's here. Thank you, Mom. Fortunately, Mom, you took that oath, right? You can't disclose anything about my background as a kid. My wife, Prue, and my son, Cole, are here. I want to thank you so much for all the support you've given me over the years. Let me thank all the people who helped make tonight possible. There are so many supporters, particularly my friends and colleagues at Patterson Belknap, a law firm that's truly committed to public service. I want to congratulate all the honorees, especially my dear friend Mylan Denerstein. I was told I wasn't allowed to tell about that meeting, Steve. I was sworn to secrecy. It may have been in a book, but now I can tell the truth. The truth is that Mylan thought that the new Attorney General was Steve Younger because he was so bad looking compared to Attorney General Cuomo, right? That's the truth, Mylan, I know. You thought I was just some fuddy-duddy politician or something. But I want to be serious because tonight is about a serious subject. It's about reflecting about civil discourse. That's what Citizens Union is all about. And in our political climate, we need Citizens Union. I can remember the first day I became state bar president. I went to my friend Mike Cardozo, who's here tonight, and one of our past honorees, and I asked for advice. I know lots of people come to you for advice, Mike. And he said, whenever the mayor has a hard decision to make about a new initiative, he asks, what does Citizens Union think? And we're so fortunate to have groups like Citizens Union because in today's environment, it's so difficult for us to kind of have these open discussions about what public policy ought to be. We can't have a discussion about immigration or guns or you name whatever subject it is without falling into partisan divides. And it's very troubling to many of us. I'm an ideologue. I like to think that in history it wasn't that way. Many of my mentors, as you saw one of them, grew up in the Rockefeller or Lindsay or Hugh Carey era. And I want to think that there was a much greater openness back then to having serious discussions of policy issues on the merits. Or perhaps more importantly, that they don't devolve into the kind of shock attacks that is what we see on the airwaves every night, and we'll go home and see them this evening as we go back. So in my view, there's one way that we need to attack this, and that is through the kind of civic engagement that Citizen Union stands for. As Dick mentioned, most of our New Yorkers don't go to the polls to vote. But perhaps more importantly to me, most New Yorkers don't understand the fundamental basics of our governmental system. One recent survey showed 60% of us don't know the three branches of government. In fact, a lot of them think it's Democrat, Republican, and Tea Party. Most Americans can't name one justice on our US Supreme Court. They know a lot more about the judges on American Idol than they know about the judges on our country's high court. That is a sad fact about civic affairs and knowledge about our government. Now, we all know there's a raging debate right now about what we should be teaching in our schools. One solution that's come to the fore is requiring more civic education. But whether it's the job of our teachers, our government officials, the press, parents, grandparents, or simply us as citizens, we can't disagree that America needs to know more about the government that makes us so special. And you know what? It's really ironic because today there's far more information available than any time in history. I mean, it's been said that because of the iPhone, Twitter, social media, more words were written this very week than all of time. But unfortunately, we don't spend time talking about, listening to other people, deal with the kinds of things that make our democracy so special. So whatever perspectives we may have on the current events, in order for our political process to work, the public has to be informed, and only if they're informed will they be civically engaged and hopefully go out to the polls and care. So in closing, I know that's the word you are all waiting for, because I'm only stopping you from the end of the evening. But I think we all need to ask ourselves what we can do to help those around us better understand what makes our democratic system so great. So I apologize for the public service announcement, but to me, that's what Citizens Union is about, and I want to thank you so much for this tremendous honor.
Folks, that's it. Believe it or not, it's been a great evening. Wonderful honorees, good food, good camaraderie. Thanks for your help and support. Good night.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today.